This podcast was sponsored by A. Miller George Funeral Home, where each life is celebrated, and their sister company, Cremation London and Middlesex, both family-owned and operated.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you may be listening. Welcome to another edition of the Vicar's Crossing podcast. The Vicar's Crossing is a virtual space where faith intersects with the public square. And we welcome you back again to our second show of 2020.
Second show?
Second show?
It's the second show.
Second show of the year. We're going to keep track this year, I guess, because I'm into counting.
This is episode. This is known as episode 2, 2020.
Man, I wonder how long that's going to last.
And we are glad you are here with us, wherever you may be tuned into and from. And we want to say hi to our sponsor today on the Vicar's Crossing podcast, who was in here live last time.
Last studio, yeah.
But now is
which is ironic for him to be live.
Office living.
The word live is ironic with this guy.
Because our sponsor, my friends, is Dave and the great staff over at the A. Miller George Funeral Home. See what Kevin did there?
Yeah.
A. Miller George Funeral Home, where each life is celebrated, and their sister company, Cremation London and Middlesex, both family-owned and operated. And as always, my name is Rob Henderson, and I'm the priest at Holy Trinity St. Stephen's Anglican Church in London.
And he's here with me, Revy Kevin George, rector at St. Aidan's, or incumbent. I think we're incumbents now, but anyway, this is where I hang out. And I hang out here from time to time with our producer.
Oh, yeah, that's me. Hello, I'm Ian. I run this joint.
He does, in more ways than one. And we're glad that you do, because there would be no podcasting.
The podcast is all about Ian.
Without Ian.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
And we have a special guest today, welcoming in from the Diocese of Huron, the esteemed and ever-loved Secretary-Treasurer of the Diocese, Mr. Paul Rathbone.
Please, it's canon, please.
Canon.
Paul. Please
canon.
get that.
Canon.
Please get that right. Give me that title that I so richly don't deserve.
Usually when he calls me, I say, "Hello, Kevin, it's Canon Paul."
All right, your canonness. I won't remember that.
You gave Ian a fancy title. I like that. Producer. So producer extraordinaire.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here. Everybody gets a title, right?
Everybody gets a title.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah,
I was teasing you because I get called that. I've been an Anglican all my life, but don't give me a
but now all of a sudden they're calling you canon.
A priestly title, because I'm not a priest, but I know it's a lay title.
It can be a lay title, yeah.
Right.
And it comes with a nice robe too. It was nice to see you in the black robe.
Did you see that? That got dry cleaned too, because I had mustard and relish stains on the last one.
Okay.
Oh, right.
So, and actually it got shipped out to Brandon, Manitoba, because we had a whole bunch of robes in our office in a closet, and we were shipping robes
They shipped them off the cliff.
They are actually from Bishop Cronin Church, and they got shipped out to Brandon with my Harry Potter robe.
How does one get mustard and ketchup on his church robe?
This is a question for the Vicar's Crossing. Can we save that?
Yeah.
I want to know where you're running off to.
Yeah, let's
After
hold
one
on
of
to
those
that.
big fancy services. You got to get mustard and ketchup all over your vestment.
I think it's all those synod barbecues,
is that what it is?
on the lawn of the cathedral.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It also makes a great napkin because it flows, and so people are always brush it
That's
up
true.
against
You can wipe
me.
your face with it.
Brush it up against me, and they just wipe their face on my my robe.
Renewing and sustaining the life of the earth by saving a napkin.
What a guy.
And just using
what
his
a guy.
robe. Yeah.
So, it's that time of year where people like Paul make us do all kinds of reports and financial statements and everything else.
Yeah, our favorite
So it's
thing.
our favorite time of year, and that means vestries. And you just had yours, Rob?
Yeah, we did have our vestry meeting, which, if you're not familiar with church talk, it's basically big parish meeting.
Annual meeting.
Annual big parish meeting. Where
It's like an annual shareholder meeting.
Exactly.
Kinda.
God help us.
Did you make any big decisions?
That next year we need more cake. We didn't have enough cake because we had a lot of people come to vestry this year.
Okay, good.
And of course, there was always
It's a
cake
testimony
and
to
coffee.
strong leadership,
That's
Robbie.
right. That's what it is. I'm bringing them in for the cake.
Yep.
Like a lot of parishes are doing, we talked about where we want to go in the next year and our mission and our ministry. And there's, as Kevin said, a lot of statistics and budget stuff and and welcoming in and holding up new leadership, because some people stepped aside in some areas and
Because
some
you got
stepped
to
in.
you got to have elections.
And you got to have elections.
And you got to receive your financials, and you got to approve a budget.
And do all that good stuff.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So, but overall,
Good.
It was a good day, and set a few things in place, and off we go.
Excellent.
And off we go. Yeah.
I've not been at much since we met, except a little crash up derby.
Well, I saw this. Did you see this picture of Kevy's car
You got
on,
in a car
on
accident?
Facebook? And-
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, I had a little fight with a Ford Expedition. And here's the thing. If you drive a Hyundai and you hit a Ford Expedition, you don't win. So that's what I learned this week.
All right.
Who hit who?
I hit the Expedition. I rear-ended this SUV. I
dear.
lost attention for a second. And I think it was as simple as picking up my can of Diet Pepsi, actually. Just looked to reach for it and missed it and looked. And when I looked up, there it was.
There we
And
Ford Expedition.
I banged mine up for $4,000 or $5,000, and it looked pretty sore, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I went up to the window and asked the woman, was she okay? And she was okay. And she had two small kids in the back. And then I actually got teary because you feel responsible.
You would
don't
not have
know.
had your collar on, because you always don't wear
I didn't have a collar on.
No.
And anyway, so we pulled ahead to the fire hall down in Byron, and she got out of her big honking SUV, and she looked at my car, and her two eyes were as big as eggs, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, look! Oh my gosh, are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, no, I'm fine." And then she sheepishly looked around the back of her vehicle to see how bad the damage was, and her two eyes got even bigger, and she looked at me and she said, "Where did you hit me?"
Oh my God!
It was like a little scratch and a
really?
little cracked piece of plastic on the bottom. But my car was just demolished. I mean, it was just crazy. But it was quite a day. I mean, because that was at 2:15, and when you have an automobile accident now, the police don't come out. So you got to call the tow truck, tow your car to the police reporting station.
Oh.
So you go out to the police reporting station, you get your rental car from your insurance, you talk to your insurance, of course. By the time I got back from doing all of that, it was 8:15 at night. The only upside was I missed a budget meeting here at the church, and so. But yeah, it was quite an ordeal. And
So you shouldn't. They won't come to the cops won't come to an accident anymore.
Not unless there's an injury, like if there's something serious. But if it's under 2,000, they don't even want to hear from you. If it's over $2,000 in damage, you got to tow your car out to the.
Well, geez, I just learned something from the Vickers Crossing today.
Well,
this has been
listen,
this has
your
been an
education-
inspirational event for me.
Paul, your education is just beginning.
Yeah, because where is that publicized across the city or the province?
Right. On
That,
their webpage.
Who would know?
that if you get in it, because everyone back when I was learning to drive, you get in an accident, you call the police.
You call the police. Yeah,
even
that's what I was thinking.
even if it's a little thing. But
Well, you can call them now, and they'll say, "Well, here's what you need to do. Is it over $2,000 in damage?" And
How do you know?
You'll say, "I don't know."
And you go, am I an appraiser?
Yeah.
And does it look like $2,000? Yeah.
What does that mean?
You need to tow it out to the police reporting station.
Wow.
Can you drive it? Is the first question. No.
Oh.
Well, if you can't drive it, then you need to get it towed out to the police reporting station, where they photograph it and tag it, and give you a case number that you can give to your insurance, and then the tow truck takes it to the auto shop of your choosing. After that.
And I guess I could have talked to my son, who's a cop now.
Yeah, he could tell you.
He's only been on the force for
Here in London?
4 months. Tyler, my youngest.
Oh, well, that's good to know. I might need to.
Yeah,
Kevin needs to get bailed out, but of the things I talked to my son about his policing job, I guess one of them was not. What do you do if you get in a car accident?
Right. Well, anyway, that's what I've been up to for the last week, dealing with that
That
crap.
was a great week.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
What about you, Ian? You hit anybody?
No, thankfully. I don't know. What have I been doing this week? Half Moon Run. Very, very good.
You take
Canadian
half your
band.
pants off or what?
Half Moon Run.
Moon Run.
One cheek.
Very.
The young guys ride their pants low on their ass,
Yeah,
right?
so it's just a top hat.
Well, can I say ass on the radio,
Yeah,
Kevin?
you can't. Well, it's not radio. This is, there's no censorship here.
Okay. Good.
They performed in because one of them was a Fanshawe MIA grad, So he came back to with his band and perform, and it was really cool. They're like some
Nice.
crazy. It's really cool, kind of music. Yeah.
So were you watching the Grammys on Sunday night? I wanted to ask you that.
I was, yeah. I went
Because-
to the downtown Fanshawe campus to watch it with a whole bunch of people who knew
It was a
Dan.
watching
and
party.
you, as a Fanshawe student of the Music Industry Arts program, would have a vested interest in the Grammys.
Oh, definitely.
because
Because Dan Broadback was an engineer for one of the albums that was nominated for rock album of the year.
There you go.
Yeah.
Dan's
Is he a
one of-
Fanshaw grad?
No, he won Ian's
Dan-
teachers.
Yeah, one of my
Professors.
teachers. Yeah.
At Fanshaw.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Very cool. Yeah.
So the Grammys had that London connection.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't win, but
He didn't win, which sucks.
Who gets
but-
nominated though? Like, I mean, that's a big deal to get nominated.
Oh
for.
gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, that was amazing.
Yeah.
So that's good. All right. Well, we're all checked in. Let's do our the most important aspect of the Vickers Crossing podcast,
Of course.
which is a segment, Paul, that we like to call "Ask Ian Anything."
Oh, big deep wow. Ian, my boy,
Yes, I'm listening.
we have a question today which was sent to us from the far regions of the world. Actually, Grammy related question.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and this one comes from Bart. And Bart is wondering.
Yes.
We know the first half of the question because you just said the answer to the first half of the question was, did you watch the Grammys? And
Yes,
you
I
did
did.
because you were there.
Yes.
So what was your favorite performance on the Grammys this past Sunday night?
I didn't see that many performances, to be honest.
Okay.
Once my invested interest was fulfilled, or once I
Yeah.
knew that Dan didn't win, I kind of lost
Just
interest.
you guys just started on the beer and weed at that point? That was the end of that? Or what?
I saw a performance by this incredible violinist a couple of rounds before Dan's category. I know that they were actually, because it was the same day that Kobe Bryant died.
Yeah.
Right. yeah.
Right. So they were in the place that they were at was where was it, like
Staples
The
Center.
Staples
yeah,
Center in
was
L.A.
in
Yeah.
LA. So and like
His
Kobe's
house.
jerseys, yeah, his house.
Kobe's
So
house.
so I think it was Lizzo who paid respect for him by pointing to his jerseys, which were lit up on the wall
That's
on the
right,
backside.
yeah.
Right.
So
Mamba
yeah.
style.
Yeah. What was the question?
Yeah, well, no, did you have a favorite performance? But it sounds like you didn't.
No.
So, okay.
This was an indication, I think, and other than Ian will appreciate this, that was one of the first Grammys I walked away from watching because I didn't know who anyone was. I'm getting so old. Who are these
It
people?
goes back to last week. On
Oh my
last
God.
week's episode, Ian said that he learned out at Music Industry Arts that once you get to the age of 30, you stop listening to new music.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Or you stop discovering new music.
you stop discovering new music. And I think that's true because I was the same way. I was
yeah.
like, I had no interest in it whatsoever.
If they had, unless they were bringing out somebody to give them a lifetime achievement award, I probably wouldn't know who they were. Right? Other than that, forget about it.
Yeah.
Well, then,
Can't
like,
do it.
Spotify is probably going to be changing that, right? Because it's so.
Well, yeah.
And I didn't watch it for a similar reason, but I also said all it's going to be is a I don't take this the wrong way, a Kobe Bryant
tribute,
tear-a-thon,
yeah.
and you'll just get everybody using their platform
That's
to
right, yeah.
talk about what a great basketball player he was. Well, we know that,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
but don't So I didn't want.
Yeah, they get carried away.
Yeah.
I thought that's what happened on Saturday. I thought that they were playing the bishop off at the end of the service there because he was giving his blessing, and I felt like it was at the Grammys. They just cut him off at the end.
Oh yeah, that's right. The
They were
microphone
like-
kind of went.
It was like he got about 4 sentences into that blessing, and that was it. They just got him.
you're
It
out.
was like, oh, we're playing you off the stage, buddy. You're done. Anyway, you got some trivia for the three of us today?
Yes, I do. We're heading back that way.
Well, let's just, we tried some music, but Rob and I, as we just talked about, we haven't discovered any new music since about 1985. So,
Well, this year.
So
Sorry.
what, after Jerry Rafferty and, and Baker Street was Jerry? I bet Ian doesn't know Jerry
No, he
Rafferty
doesn't
and
know.
Baker Street.
He doesn't know, no.
Anyway, so the trivia questions this year are coming from the year 1984.
Oh, okay.
So that's
actually,
pretty good
that's
for
a good
you
year
guys.
for us. That's a good year for us.
So would Paul, our guest, our esteemed guest, would you like to choose a category for each of our fine gentlemen on this side of the room?
I choose a category for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and each individual one
What are my options?
from the Trivia Pursuit game. So there's, what are the options? There's entertainment,
Geography,
sports,
history,
geography, history,
entertainment,
and
sports.
Literature.
Literature, arts and literature.
Okay. Let's go for Robbie, arts and literature.
Gotcha.
All right.
And for
what
Kevin?
about me?
Kevin, history.
Gotcha. Cool.
Okay,
Arts and
all
literature
right.
is the pink one, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Man, I'm getting these down.
No, the pink one is entertainment.
Oh, arts and literature is
brown
the
Purple.
Purple. Gotcha.
It used to be brown.
It used to be brown.
All right, here we go. What no-nonsense CEO, give me a second. What no-nonsense CEO's autobiography documents his firing from Ford Motor and his saving of Chrysler from bankruptcy?
Come on. This is the arts and literature question?
This is the purple one.
From 1984.
Yeah, arts and literature for him.
Yeah, okay.
You know this, Robbie.
Wait, no, you guys got it backwards. Hold on. The arts and literature was pink. I was right the first time. Because purple oh gosh.
We'll let Kevin answer that one, but I think he knows the answer.
I know the answer to that one. Yeah. The answer is Lee Iacocca.
Yes, that is correct.
Right.
That's, yeah.
So,
He made the K car and saved Chrysler.
K
Is that
car,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
My grandmother bought one of those,
Yeah.
and she brought it over. The honest to God story, brought it over to show me her new K car.
Yeah.
I was 17. She asked me if I wanted to drive it, and I got in an accident.
wow.
Way to go,
A
Robbie.
brand new K car. Yeah.
I hope you didn't call the cops right away.
No, they had to call the cops back then.
Disposable cars, really. That and a minivan. He was also responsible for the minivan that everybody likes to drive around in nowadays. So there you go. So ask the other question to
Well, it's
Robbie.
arts and entertainment, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So, what girl power anthem by Cyndi Lauper starred wrestling manager Captain Lou Albano
yeah.
as her dad in its
Come on.
award-winning music video?
That was my wedding song.
Yeah.
It's easy. Girls want to have fun.
Correct.
Right. So I want to pick one for Paul.
Of course.
Let's ask Paul a sports question.
Sports question. Here we go.
That's what I love, but I'm probably going to get something so obscure.
Yeah. We got listeners according to Facebook. Look, people are popping up there.
Oh my God.
See, you
wow.
are popular, Paul. You're worried about that. Don't
At
worry.
the LA Olympics, what iconic athlete beat his closest opponent by 8 feet in the 100 meters and also won 4 golds?
Well, that's a good question.
Oh, I think
I know this.
Yeah.
In the 84,
84 Olympics?
Yes. LA Olympics.
was that Carl Lewis?
I think it was
That is
Carl Lewis.
correct.
Very
Yeah,
good.
Carl
boys.
Lewis
Very
is
good.
We're 3 for 3 today, boys.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
Excellent.
We did good today on trivia,
good
folks. I
today.
hope you
There we
guys
go.
listening did too.
So, Paul, turning our attention to you.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do that since you are our guest today. So, you mentioned you're not a big fan of titles, so I'm not going to call you canon. But I also know on your business card the words secretary treasurer are written on there as well. So maybe you can just tell our listeners a little bit about what does a secretary treasurer do in a diocese of an Anglican church? What's your role there?
Well, it's a bit of a interesting title, not that common. Probably more common in charities or older corporations, but the secretary component of it is because in church land, I'm the secretary of synod, so I have the responsibility for not any real big responsibility because everything lies or rests with the bishop, but I'm responsible for helping to organize synod and make sure that the proceedings and the decisions of synod are organized and documented, sort of, and as well as diocesan council, which meets quarterly in the diocese, and it is like the synod in between synods, because synod only comes up like your parish or like your vestry once a year. So how do you make decisions
Between
at the diocesan level? We have diocesan councils which can approve other things, but that's what the secretary of the diocese basically functions around is looking after synod and the decision making body of the diocese. And then the treasurer component is what my role says in canon. I'm in the Constitution. My role is in the Constitution.
He's like Meech Lake.
Is that I have the responsibility for all the finances of the diocese, so hence the treasurer component. So I look after the finances and the goings on of synod.
Good for you. You know what strikes me about your what Paul has just told you is that he does these functions, that he's got to do, whether it's the secretarial role or the treasurer's role. But what he didn't tell you is all the little things that he does, because that's not the way Paul sort of functions. He doesn't toot his own horn unless he's got a microphone, and then he tends to go on for a while. But he's legendary at meetings for his long talks. But Paul, I have to say, Paul, that you are singularly one of the hardest working people I've ever seen in Churchline. And that's the truth. And I remember,
because he hasn't seen me work that much.
I rolled in down there a few years ago when we had a new bishop coming into town, and Paul was in there at night painting an office for an incoming bishop. Not because that's
not in the
clearly
job
not in the secretary treasurer's role.
No.
But that's the sort of guy Paul is. And when Paul talks about synod, that's an annual meeting. For those of you who don't know our insider talk, that takes place at the convention center with like 400 people. It's a massive undertaking, and yes, he's got people who work with him to make that happen. But
we have 2 podcasts about it.
Yeah, we do have a couple podcasts if you go back and listen. And you're just involved with so much more than your role as an accountant, I'll say. So I wonder if you can share a little bit about. I mean, it's a choice for you. I mean, as a what do you call that now? Certified chartered accountant, or what do they call it now?
Now it's a CPA, Certified Professional Accountant, which is an American.
Okay, so that's what you are. That sounds very fancy.
It does, very fancy.
But I also know that folks who have a CPA can do quite well in their work. But you're working for a nonprofit. Not only that, you're working for the church, and you have options. I mean, you get to me like, some of us are stuck working for the church. I'm kidding, but you could choose to make your living in the private sector. You don't have to work for a nonprofit. What drives you to work for the church?
That's an interesting question, Kevin.
Yeah.
Well, I've been here 19 years now, but I've been an Anglican all my life.
Yeah.
Cradle Anglican. My family was very involved in the church, but I had done the spiel with corporate work and profit companies, and I had seen the ad for a secretary treasurer, and was wanting to get out of sort of the rat race of what I was doing in terms of constantly always seemed to be in month ends, regurgitating financial reports on a boom timely basis. So a little tired of that. My kids were young, and I saw this job for a charity, the church, which I was quite familiar with, even though I had got away from the church a little as I had gotten older. But I said, my goodness, I can do this. I probably would be a good candidate because of my church background.
Yeah.
And my family had all been involved in the church very well, so thought that could help. So I applied, and here I am. But what drives me to continue to do that work is my Christian upbringing and wanting to help the institution continue to flourish and grow and help other people. So I thought I could bring a bit of my number crunching background and my administrative skills to a place like this and help it to
such a critical combination, though. Like, I mean, that's one of the things I will say is that we're very fortunate in the Diocese of Huron to have you in that role, because you can always get it's not hard to find a very competent person who knows how to crunch numbers. I mean, that you can do. But to have somebody who actually understands the baptismal ministry that we're all called to and the mission of the church, because if we've just got somebody who can simply crunch numbers, they might look at some of what we do as utter madness. Yeah. I mean, it would drive many accountants mad, because we don't run on bottom line economics necessarily. We run on faith, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a business. We keep hearing that. Well, you need to treat it more like a business. And yeah, sure. And you got away from business for a reason. We don't need to treat it more like a business. We need to more accurately live our baptism. And so having someone like yourself who's got that faith background and who knows and understands that the church's mission is beyond just the bottom line is so critical. So, and would you say it's 19 years now?
19 years.
Well, we're all getting older, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, it's been a tremendous gift to us, because you do bring that faith aspect to your work.
Right. Well, thank you. And something you just sort of said, put it in perspective for me as well. That because I know about, and I'm sure new accountants going into a charity like this, that don't have the church background would continue to run it like a business and try and drive a bottom line, or like we're not having to account to shareholders with a profit margin or a share price. We're not driven that way.
Right.
We're a not-for-profit charity, so as long as we're floating around a balanced budget, then we continue to be successful. But I appreciate when churches are trying to do things or there's financial decisions to be made. It's not always about the bottom line. So you can be more flexible. And I think that's what I try to do in my role. It's not always to the number and trying to hit a bottom line. It's holding that within reason, but trying to still accomplish the common good, which may not always happen if you're in a profit company, right? They'd say, no, we're doing it this way because it's the most profitable measure or it makes the most financial sense, but it may not be the best thing to do for the company, right?
It's almost like you get more of a holistic view of everything. Like you say, it's not just the bottom line or the money that drives it.
Our decisions aren't always driven by pure economics or by profit,
right?
Which is something that you've got to, if you're a new person coming into this role, in this financial role, you may struggle with it for a little while until you really understand what you're trying to do.
I mean, we're driven by the love of Jesus. We're compelled by the love of Jesus, and it's madness. It's madness. I mean, the gospel message is mad in that it tells us to give away what we have. It tells us to move towards the vulnerable and the weak, and that we're not about imperialism or institutionalization or enlarging our coffers. It's about what can we do to change and transform the lives of people, to know that people are being cared for, and having a treasurer or a secretary treasurer, or whatever the hell your title is nowadays, Canon.
I think it's changed since I've been here.
It has. Is so critical, and that's why I just we've been very fortunate to have you in that role. Extremely fortunate, and you've seen a few bishops come and go, yeah.
Yeah, well, you've after almost 20 years, right? So this last Saturday, we were consecrating a new bishop, Todd Townsend.
I think he's my fourth diocese.
So this is, you've seen a few bishops come and go over the years of your time here.
Which I guess over 19 years, what's the average? They say, what's the average time of a bishop in office? I'm not too sure, but probably anywhere from 7 to 15 years on average, maybe. But
so how many have you destroyed? I mean, how many have you? How many?
That was your producer speaking.
How many have you been through?
4.
4 bishops.
Yep. Want me to name them?
Yeah.
Bruce Howe, Bob Bennett, Linda Nichols, and now Todd.
And a couple.
Have I missed any?
And a couple of suffragans in there too. Probably.
A couple of suffragans in there. Well, I initially started. Todd's dad was suffragan when I started.
Right.
I started. Bob Townsend worked for 8 months.
Okay.
And then he retired. The year I started, and then Bob was the suffragan elected under Bruce, and then
Bob Bennett,
and then Bruce retired, and Bob took over or got elected. He was the administrator, I think. Then he got elected, and then Terry was elected suffragan, and he was potentially could be our last suffragan, but I don't know what
the future holds.
What the future holds for that.
Yeah. So Saturday was a big day. I mean, what was that like for you?
It was.
Saturday, by the way, for our listeners, we had a ordination, consecration, and seating of our new bishop, Todd Townsend, who, again, go back through our episodes. You'll find an interview with him.
Yeah. I think it was my third consecration then, because as we're just going through the history of the last 20 years of bishops, I would have seen Bob Bennett's consecration.
Yeah.
No, actually, including Terry's. The suffragan, I guess it would have been Terry's.
Yeah.
Then Linda was enthroned, I guess they call that, because she was already a consecrated bishop.
Seated.
Yeah, that was interesting.
In a birdhouse.
Enthroned at the United Church.
Metropolitan United.
Downtown, because our cathedral was under repair. We couldn't fit anybody in there. So
she sat in a birdhouse, as I remember.
Birdhouse,
you're right.
Yeah.
So this may have only been my third consecration, I guess, of a bishop, but it's always it's very pageantry-like.
It's a regal affair.
And pomp and colorful and circumstance. And so I was, and I thought the turnout was wonderful, and as it should be for consecration of a new bishop. Yeah. Because we didn't, when Linda was, Archbishop Linda was brought in as the diocesan, it didn't even happen at St. Paul's. Like you said, it was at Metropolitan United. So the last consecration we would have been Terry Dance as suffragan, probably.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right.
So it's been a little while since we had a consecration there. So it was a great turnout. The place was filled.
Yeah.
and I thought the music was wonderful, and a great representation of all from the House of Bishops, the provincial House of Bishops.
Yeah.
So it's quite a full place, and
Felt different to me. You, Rob?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, it was.
I think Todd's family component made it different too.
The family component. There was a lot of symbolism going on in that service that was really noticeable. And I was sitting. I had a funeral in the morning, so I was kind of running late. So I wasn't sitting up with the clergy where we usually sit all vested up. So I was sitting in the back, which is the first time I ever sat back there, just for something like that. And there were a lot of lady back there around me.
Yeah.
And I was kind of overhearing some of the conversations that were going on. And some of the things that were jumping out was, the idea that the service was opened by our indigenous representatives speaking in their native tongue. Yeah. And that the first reading was done by a colleague of Todd's at Huron College, who's a teacher up there, Ingrid Matson.
A Muslim woman in a hijab.
A Muslim faith. So to see
Can I lower this?
Yeah. Go ahead.
How do I do it?
A Muslim woman going up to the lectern to read the first reading in a Christian cathedral at a that said a lot.
And help me out here, Rob, because what actually I was talking to Bishop Todd about about the readings and who was reading, and he mentioned Ingrid Matson was going to read,
right?
And you helped me out with my lack of theology, but he would, because of her Muslim faith, she read from the book of Ezekiel, which translates well between the Muslim and the Christian faith.
Right. Right.
So she was able to read that Ezekiel.
Yep.
Which is a regular reading in her Muslim faith,
right,
at a Christian service.
It was, and it just spoke to this is where we are now,
and the inclusion of the children.
The inclusion, exactly. I was going to go on like the children, and there's so many things that were going on during that service that was a real indication, and what I heard people talking about, and my wife who's sitting next to me too.
And that's Margie with a hard G, not a soft G.
That's Margie. Yeah, that's right. Hi, Margie. Hi, honey.
Hi, Margie. I never get your name right, Margie. Sorry.
but the talk and the understanding was around getting a feeling of this is a picture where the church is now, and we're happy with that. Like this is something we've been working toward and trying to get to a place where all this inclusion and different aspects of it are to be seen by all.
Feels like a new day.
Yeah, it felt like that. So anyway,
I'll ask your opinion of that too, Paul. But I know, like for me, when I went down into, I said this in my sermon on Sunday, when I went down into the bowels of the cathedral, and that's what it feels like when you go down in that basement. But this may come as a shock to some listeners, but some of us who are clergy can be quite cynical. And full of piss and vinegar, and I say that as a confession, not as an accusation, because I can be the worst of them, to be honest. And I just know sometimes I've found my way down into that basement full of clergy, sort of cringing as I go, because there's a negativity sometimes with some of the stuff we're doing. And I just got to tell you that when I went down there on Sunday or Saturday it was when we went down there was such an air of anticipation and excitement, and the place was full. I have not seen that many clergy out to something in a long time. That I just felt a real sense of positivity, and that we're turning a page, so to speak, and that I just think that there's I don't know. You and I were talking about this the other day. It feels like there's a new air right now, and I don't know if you sense that.
And do you think I do, and do you think that's because Bishop Todd is a little younger, and he comes at it from a different place, not only maybe in his theology or leadership style, but he's coming from an educational institution, which in the Canadian House of Bishops, there have been, I don't know if I'd say there was a trend towards it, but there has been some bishops elected that have had that have been scholars, like when I say scholars, from an academic background, like Stephen Andrews when he went to Algoma, and then he went back down to be a principal of a seminary, but then John Chapman was elected. They all have PhDs in theology, and now another bishop with a PhD in theology, and I don't know whether that helps us or whether that detracts us from some things, but Todd's younger. He's got a younger family, and so he's probably got different interests and different perspectives on things. And I think maybe not having come from a very long history of parish ministry, But you know, I guess.
But having
having
his feet in it for quite a while and
Yeah.
understanding the dynamics of what
and
that
having
is
been, and having been raised in it.
and having been raised in it, exactly, and all that. So all those things combined, I think, are a big part of that.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think there's a bit of freshness and newness to his election.
Do you folks at Church House down on 190 Queens Ave? Do you get that sense too in the office?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like he's still really fresh and new in the office, but already people are I've heard excited about just seeing his new style already in the office, and he wants to meet everybody individually, and which is good so that he get to know the people because like I said, Todd's come at it from Huron University, where he's chaired some committees and would occasionally be in our office, but not maybe as much as a parish priest will have. Over
you wouldn't have seen him come in as often as I do, for instance, who gets called into the office.
Kevin wasn't there on his own accord.
That was a different matter. But,
were you called in by the principal a lot, Kevin, growing up?
Not too much, but it's something I cultivated when I got into the church. I heard the bishop on CJBK radio yesterday, and
CJBK,
1290, and one of the questions they asked him was. They said, well, now you're in that leadership position. You're responsible for reining in people like Kevin George. They said, how are you going to deal with that? And he said, that's an impossible task.
But that's not the radio station you occasionally are heard on, is it?
Yeah. I'm on there on Thursday mornings. Thursday mornings, folks. CJBK radio.
Sorry, I got the call that I was confused in my head. So that's funny.
So we're getting a lot of activity on Facebook. Actually, there's been a lot of lots of folks.
But you said if people wanted to call in and complain.
Actually,
maybe there isn't a call-in, but if they wanted to complain.
I was asked on here.
Not about the apportionment. I don't want people calling in and complaining about the apportionment.
Into the office. No, don't call Paul and complain about apportionment.
He doesn't want to
Don't ring. Yeah, one of the questions is, can you reduce my apportionment? No. This viewer named Rob Stevenson has a question.
Oh, I know Rob Stevenson.
Well, he's the father to producer Iain.
Was that your dad?
Yeah. So Rob Stevenson says...
I umpired with your dad.
Yeah, so Rob Stevenson says, Paul Rathbone and his family have been involved with Oak Ridge baseball and umpiring in particular for many years. Please ask Paul about his baseball career.
My baseball career. Well, people and Rob, I've been trying to get into the Hall of Fame longer than Larry Walker. I think I've overshot my 10-year exemption period, but I did not know you were Iain Stevenson. Son of a gun.
Son of a Rob. Actually.
Son of a Rob. Did you play? You played Oak Ridge and Badgers?
Yes, I did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, were you the son that had? I hate to say this. Were you the son that got the eye damage?
Yeah, that's
from
me.
the baseball.
Yep, that's me.
See, you two knew each other and you didn't even
know it. I did not know that. See, this is another thing I got to learn. Okay.
Poor Iain, if I'm getting this right, was catching a fly ball.
No, I was
attempting to catch a fly ball.
Not even attempting. It was a fly ball that went farther than it was supposed to, and I was at the back. I was going to the back of the line because I just finished the sort of drill we were doing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you can continue and I'll fill in the blanks.
But I knew from Rob in my runnings across with Rob umpiring and other things that his son had been injured, and I think I was actually at the Ivy Institute, the IVI Institute here in London, just because I got a mild form of glaucoma. And I got talking to Rob while he was there.
I have a mild form of something too, but we don't talk about that.
Yeah, but those rashes can get cleared up, Kevin.
There's a pill for
PG
that.
now.
There's a pill for that.
I got an ointment. Don't worry.
But I saw Rob there, and then that's how I knew Iain had been hit in the eye because Rob was there, and we got talking. I said, anyhow, but no, I've
been umpiring for a long time.
I've umpired for a long time, and I've been the treasurer of Oak Ridge Baseball. Part of my whole accounting training is to continue. I got to follow my continuous professional development stuff, and volunteering is a way of getting my hours and continuing on with that. So I volunteer for several organizations, but through Oak Ridge Baseball for years, where my boys both played competitive ball, and then I love baseball so much. I somehow, I don't know how I got into umpiring, but someone had mentioned it at one point. So I started taking the training on that and got up to a level 3, which isn't that high, but I've umpired at some
good.
fairly Rob Stevens and Ian's dad's a level 5, like
really?
quad level 5, level 5 A, B, or C, whatever's the highest one.
Okay.
But
So what did you have you umping?
well, I umped Badgers, so I umpired high level AAA ball, as well as some not inter county stuff, so not like London majors, but senior ball here in London, which can get very competitive, like the whole Ilderton teams, and these are boys that are in their late 20s, early 30s that can throw and play really hard. So
you've umpired at a high enough level to be called names.
Oh God! Oh yeah!
Oh, I'm sure.
What's your favorite? Like, what's your favorite heckle? Like someone like what would be
a good heckle?
Like, what would be the
Who's
best?
a good heckler? Or what's a good heckle?
No, what is a good one? Yeah,
But
like that you can say without
us losing our
losing our job.
off Facebook.
We can't get kicked off the internet. So, but
Oh geez, I don't know. The whole thing of being blind or you're awful ump or I don't know.
did they ever come after your family?
No.
Oh, because I do that when I go.
But when I go I have heard I've been parking lots. When the ump's getting undressed.
Do they come at you at
somewhere?
the car?
I've been challenged in the parking lot before. Like
really? Wow.
Keep it on the diamond, folks.
Oh, really? They challenge you in the parking lot?
Oh, don't bring it out to the parking lot. Yeah.
Well, I went last year to a London Majors game when Rob was umpiring, and I was there and I was yelling out, "Hey, umpire! I know what your problem is. You didn't take enough communion this morning." Because he was at church before he went down there.
I bet you never heard that one.
Yeah, and then another one was, "I spend every Tuesday night with your wife, ump. I know what's going on." As she's out here for Bible study, so.
So did a young Paul Rathbone ever aspire to be a professional baseball player? You said you love baseball. Did you play?
I played, but I never aspired to know. And it's even, I don't know what's harder to get into. I bet it's harder to get it for Canadians. Well, for Canadians, it's probably much harder to get into the MLB than it would be the NHL.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know. But, one joke, you were making comments about what you had shouted at Rob, but my umpire buddies, I would somehow... umpires are a strange breed. Yeah. They'll come and watch other umpires umpire.
What are you doing tonight? Well, we're going to go watch Robbie umpire.
Yeah. So, even when I would go to professional games, like in Detroit or in Toronto, I spend a good amount of time watching the umpires and what they're doing and where they're positioned and how they're following the game. And even just going to the London Knights the other night, I like to watch the two referee system. And, you follow one ref around and how he follows the play. And
baseball nights at home, my dad, like when it's sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll see my dad with the baseball game on the TV, and he has like sometimes two computers open, one with the hockey game on, and then you'll have like a website where he's online with other like umpires discussing the baseball thing, and if you're lucky you'll hear him yell at the screen that they got something wrong.
He also isn't he also a guy whose life revolves around jobs and money?
Oh yeah, your dad works for.
So there's something
there's a connection here.
There's something going on here. These people are very exciting people.
Rob works for Nesbitt Burns.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
So you guys are very exciting, eh? You accountants.
Oh, we're excited. Not only am I'm an accountant, I've stopped umpiring now, but like that's a pretty.
So you pay $80 to sit at the Rogers Center and watch
the
umpires.
Listen, Paul goes out after a game. And someone says, "How was the game?" And he says, "Well, the third base umpire was just
he was out of position for that last call."
But what's happening? But you're right, though. They get very critical. It's like if you guys show up at a different church service, you're going to critique. You're going to critique the liturgy, and you're going to critique their homily.
No doubt.
We do the same thing going to a baseball game. We critique the umpires, and sometimes it's amazing.
He did not genuflect at the proper spot.
But boy, your dad, I've done some games with him, and of course, Rob's a senior umpire, so he like I said, level 5, he can umpire internationally.
Yeah, no, he's really good,
and probably has. But he'd always take the plate. Some people don't want to do the plate, especially at a senior level game with really you don't want to do the plate because you're under the most critique there.
Yeah.
Mind you, sometimes the closest plays can happen on the bases, like plays at first base.
That's true. Yeah,
you can get tougher calls at first base than you can at the plate. But Rob always wanted the plate.
Yeah,
Ian's dad, because he's in control.
Yes,
and he says, "I want good exercise," because your dad, no one hustled.
Oh man, he's just booking it.
When he's behind the plate, he's booking it out behind the plate all the time. He gets more exercise behind the plate than he does on the bases.
He's such a badass because he'll take like 80 miles.
He's listening on Facebook Live saying he's loving this chat. I think we've about exhausted as much as we should say about Rob Stevens.
This last thing, he's such a badass because like he'll take like 80-mile-per-hour pitches like to like the elbow or like the shoulder where there's like not a lot of padding, and he won't flinch. Like he'll just hit him and bounce off like a tree.
Yeah. He's a machine.
It's insane.
And you know what other thing? Sorry, two other things quickly.
Okay.
The other thing about Rob.
Yeah.
He won't take a drink during the game. He doesn't think that's professional.
No.
You know, a lot of the umpires would keep water by the fence line.
Yeah.
You know, we're even.
I thought you meant like scotch. I was going to say I try to wait till after church to have mine too, but
even in the pros, you never see. You know, of course, it breaks to commercial. So how do the professional umpire? They got to have water between the game.
Yeah.
But you don't see them with a water bottle on their hip. That's not professional. But Rob would never drink during the game. Doesn't think it's professional. So he's probably.
Wow.
But anyways, one of my greater joke lines is when some of my umpire friends would sometimes catch a game, their great chant when I was on the plate was, "Hey, Umpy, can I pet your seeing eye dog?"
Oh, that's a good one.
That was always a good line.
That's a good one.
That's a good
Can
one.
I pet your seeing eye dog?
But before we go today, we'll get a few lines from Paul, and we'll go to a game this summer.
That's right.
And we'll try him out.
We'll try him out on Rob.
Yeah, we'll try him out on Rob.
And so here's a good question then, follow up on that. This is not faith related at all, but we're having a good chat, so let's go with it. But how do you feel about there's talk now that they might go to computer balls and strikes?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now, how do you feel about
You
that?
certainly see that on any game you watch on TV now,
Well,
right?
they've got it right there. But now they're
computer-driven.
talking about having an umpire back there who will tell you what the machine says.
I don't agree with it at all,
No.
because I think that's changing the. There's so much history, and how are you going to compare pitchers and batters from the 40s and 50s and 60s? Although you're taking it out of the human element now, because there would have been years or all kinds of instances where Ted Williams may have been walked a lot more than he should have been because sorry, how was I trying to say this? But if a certain player got called third strike on a great hitter, that may not have been a strike, but so you're just changing
You take the human element away from it.
and you're changing the way the game's been played.
Yeah.
I don't think something.
I don't like it.
Yeah, it doesn't enhance the game.
I don't mind the odd instant replay on the bases and the way they do things now, but not for.
I don't like
Not
it.
balls and
pitching.
strikes. No,
not for balls
not
and
for
strikes. That's changing the cosmetics of the game way too much.
Yeah.
Because it's a game just rich in history, right?
Oh,
in
yeah.
terms of the stats back in the days, and
So the Oak Ridge baseball thing for me, where it translates is Rob had mentioned that your family was involved in a lot of years, and you mentioned your boys a couple times, and one of the difficult parts of your journey in this past couple of years is you lost your wife Chris to cancer, and so to switch off into that direction now, I just wonder if maybe you can talk a little bit. We got listeners from literally all over the world, and a lot of people go through this.
is he being serious?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
All over the world, eh?
And many people deal with grief, and they deal with it in different ways. And sometimes, the ones I feel sad for are the ones that don't have a community or anybody to sort of come alongside of them. And so I just wonder if you can share a bit about what your journey was like in terms of how you get through that. And I know, being someone who's worked for the church, knowing some of the story inside, there are people who really helped you in that. And I just wonder if maybe you can share a bit about what the grief is like and how you've coped with it and how the church has played a role in that or not.
Well, where I work has naturally or certainly helped out quite a bit, because we are a caring, faith-based church. Not to say that there's not people, and I wouldn't be treated the same way if I worked somewhere else. But I think it's just been even more prevalent because of where I work, that there's caring people that I feel at 54 years old I lost her, and of course people lose loved ones at all kinds of ages, right? But 54, because it's happened to me, just seems too young. And too so young. So and I've got 2 young boys, 27 and 30, who have lost their mom at a they could have lost her a lot earlier, and that would have been maybe more difficult. But fortunately for them, they're married and they have partners that can help them. But I lost her very young, so I would have never thought. Of course, you never think about these things, right? But as you get older and hit a certain age, I've heard some say, well, my wife and I talk about or think about who may end up going first one day, or something like that.
It's not a conversation you're having at 50. Though.
No, it's not a conversation you're having at 54. So she was taken from me
way too soon.
And it's I think, I know my boys don't think about it, because even though they were raised in the church, baptized and confirmed, but unfortunately they've drifted away from it as they've gotten older. But I hope there comes a time when they think about that, because you got to think of an afterlife at some point. And if you believe in the afterlife, which I do, some may not, but some may also think, where will you go where does your soul go when you die? And I've asked this to a couple of my clergy friends already. I wonder where she is, like how does the soul continue to live and breathe? So working for the church, I think, has really made me think about that a lot more. Of course, having also lost her so young, that I get emotional a lot more when I hear about people that have lost their loved ones, and tragic things that happen to people. And but I'm very fortunate, if I can say this, even though I feel so lost because I've lost her, I'm at least fortunate that I've had some people around me who are very caring and really helped me along the way. So
you've had good pastors.
I do have. And there's some people that I've gotten to know in my role at the diocese for a number of years that I have a great relationship with, and they've been very caring to me. So it's helped a lot.
And it sounds like, too, being in that faith community, whether it's at church house or parish or just with others of faith, being able to ask the questions that you were asking, it's a healthy place to ask them.
Exactly.
Because I often think, to go back to the office at wherever, and have to ask those questions about souls and where we go and what it all means and all that, might not be as comfortable a place or safe a place to do that, but to be surrounded by that, it can actually be healing and give you that place to.
And I think you're right, Robin. I think a lot of people are good, but when I say good, I mean they're good in the sense that they're caring and they
got the right touch.
But with the church, it's even a little bit more, and it's kind of hard to put into words. But.
It is, isn't it? Well, but I think that's because it's in some ways it's a bit numinous, right? Like it's other life, it's otherworldly. It's something about the context that we live in. If we're actually living that baptismal promise well of striving to support the dignity of every human being. So what does it look like to care for Paul when Paul has been so busy caring for everybody else? Like that's the one thing that I felt when you were going through that, and a part of me was like, because you're so well known in the diocese, and that it must also have been hard to the journey before her death through cancer is a very difficult one, and trying to protect your privacy in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Because so many people, you could be inundated with phone calls. I mean, you're so loved by everybody in the diocese. You could be dealing with 15, 20 calls a day. How are you doing? How's Chris? All that. And so I know you were very careful to protect your privacy. And did you feel you were given that too, that sense of people being respectful of enough space for you to be able to live through that?
I think so overall. Yeah. But it can be tiring when people, they want to be caring and they want to ask how you're doing. But, and I've talked to various people. Of course, the one thing is to try and come up with the right line. Yeah. How are you doing?
Yeah.
Because in a lot of cases,
I feel like shit.
I'm still not doing well with it.
Right.
But a lot of people and some of my close clergy friends who have been so caring for me, they get asked, how's Paul doing?
Right.
Right.
And they see that because they see the way I am, because I mask it by trying to be by using my sense of humor and everything else that they think he's not looking so bad. He's doing all right, but I'm not.
No, you're heartbroken.
I'm still struggling.
You're heartbroken.
Yeah, and I probably will. Well, I know I'll always be heartbroken, so I'll never get over her.
Yeah.
So,
and
she's the love of my life.
Yeah, and so for those who are listening to this, who are going through a similar thing, I mean, I think it's helpful to hear, you say that, that, and it's been what now since Chris's death?
It's been a little over a year.
A little over
a few months.
And you still ache over this.
Yeah. Go home. Hardest part's going home every night.
I was going to say, what do you miss the most?
Just she worked at a school, so
yeah.
I'm not going to be selfish and say I miss home cooking, but because she got off school a little earlier than
when you came home.
She was there when I came home, and so we'd eat an earlier dinner perhaps, and then just when she was healthy, we would just we'd either see our kids more, but we just relax and watch TV and
it's those daily things that they're almost routine, right? You don't think about them when they're going on because we do this every night.
No. And it's funny. One of the harder things, I'd go visit her maybe once. It's funny as you go to work and you don't see your spouse. You see your people around work more than you do your own spouse. So there's a time when you want to see them during the week sometimes. So I'd go over to her school on occasion at lunch hour and just bring her a tea or something like that. And it was always kind of neat to go in. And me being a pain in the ass, and I have to tease the little kids in the office. And my wife was an administrator of the school, so I always wanted to use the intercom system and just page people and page a couple of people I knew. Like I said, Kevin, you give me a microphone.
Yeah.
and so I used to love going into the school because I teased little kids that are in their office for bad behavior and see my wife. And her teachers at Ryerson Public School she was very close to them, so they were very good to her and me when she had cancer. But I would want to go back to the school. I've gone back to the school once or twice, but that was one of my harder things to do, was to go back to her school where I would go visit her.
I bet.
Once or twice a week at lunch hour. It was just hard for me to go back to her school and know she's not there.
Yeah, those are holy places, right?
Well, yeah, and of course, and it's funny. I have to go home.
Yeah,
because that's where I live and that's where my being is. But so I have to go home and I miss her. But to go back to her school once or twice.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go back anymore. But it was really hard to go back to her school.
It was probably necessary for you too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
And I think I shared this with you before, but I'm gonna read it to share it with our listeners. But it's a quote of Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Yes, you sent that to me one time. I remember.
I did, and I think it's really
he a place kicker for the New York Giants?
He was, yeah. He was with the Giants. It's actually in this picture right here. And but Bonhoeffer writes this about separation and loss in terms of death, and lots of times people say, well, God fills up the space and God looks after you and all this. I'm sure you've heard 1,000 nice, cute little things that God does for everybody who's grieving. And none of it's that helpful, but people are trying to be helpful. But Bonhoeffer decides to go in the opposite direction. And so he writes, there's nothing that can replace the absence of someone dear to us, and one should not even ever attempt to do so. One must simply hold out and endure it. At first, that sounds very harsh, but at the same time, it's also a great comfort. For to the extent the emptiness truly remains unfilled, one remains connected to the other person through it. It is wrong to say that God fills the emptiness. God in no way fills it, but much more leaves it precisely unfilled and thus helps us persevere, even in pain. Helps preserve, even in pain, the authentic relationship. Furthermore, the more beautiful and full the remembrances, the more difficult the separation. But gratitude transforms the torment of memory into silent joy. One bears what was lovely in the past, not as a thorn, but as a precious deep gift within, a hidden treasure of which one can always be certain. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think that even in the pain, it's the authentic relationship. It's even this hearing your stories here in these last few minutes about what you remember, right? It's in that place. It's that emptiness that leaves you connected to her, and those powerful memories that keep you connected. And it's a sacred journey you're on. And I'll state the obvious. I think we love you. But I just I think, like many others in the diocese, have wanted to wrap you up and just hold on to you, because it's not an easy journey.
No.
And I think that you're not making it alone, that you're cared for by a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's really nice of you to say that, and thank you.
Yeah, that's so true. We started off saying why we were blessed to have you as part of the diocese, and it wasn't just for your skills as a CPA. We can get anybody.
It's not just balls and strikes, boys.
Yeah, but like we exactly like we were saying at the beginning, Paul brings such a unique perspective and place in the wider church to the work that you do, and so we're appreciative of that, and we're appreciative of the work, but also of the fact that you walk your faith and you celebrate in joy and happiness and things, because we have a lot of fun and we laugh. But you're also you've had heartache and heartbreak and challenges and in sharing those like you did today. That's a blessing to the church too, because there's people on the other end of these microphones listening today that are hearing that and being healed from your story and feeling supported as well.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
So that's all good.
So have you got a tour coming up now? Are you going to be doing a deanery tour? Or?
It sounds like I feel like I'm on Q, CBC Radio Q, and do I have a tour coming up? Yeah, I'll be performing at the El Macombo, Tavern.
You going to be in Essex County anytime soon, presenting a budget?
Not till this coming October. This coming October, I'll be.
The budgets are in the fall. You've already done the tour.
No, the budget
so how was the tour?
Oh, the tour was fabulous.
Yeah.
They line up outside these churches.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of groupies, or
a couple of groupies? Yeah, I haven't had any undergarments thrown my way, but I have had some.
You're like Tom Jones.
I have had some rulers and calculators thrown at me at some of my budget presentations.
So I wonder. Have you brought along the Chancellor Emeritus to any of those meetings, Stephen Q. Adams?
Just to one, and I think it was in London.
Yes, I do remember.
I think you may have been the regional dean at the time.
I was the regional dean at the time, and I remember asking Stephen asked were there any questions, and I asked Stephen if he's ever had breakfast with Archbishop Percy O'Driscoll, and Stephen was so proud. Is
Percy listening to this?
I don't know. We hope so. And Stephen was so excited I asked the question because he loves to tell the story about how he did the math once, and he figures he had 542 breakfasts over at the diner there.
542?
Yeah, something like that.
Wow.
It's over 500.
Down to the number.
We talked about it at the chapel one day, too, because the beauty of Stephen is he often forgets that he told me the story. So, but
sometimes he forgets who you are, too.
Yeah, that's true. He often forgets that. Who are you?
Are you a cleric? Are you a licensed cleric in the
Stephen,
diocese?
Percy O'Driscoll will tell you that Stephen Adams was a godsend to him when he was the diocesan bishop, because they went through such hard times with all those lawsuits and everything that was going on, and there was a lot of clergy poor behavior and a lot of firings that happened during that time. And Stephen was the chancellor, and he can't say enough good about him, actually. So I joke about Stephen, but Stephen's given a lot to the church over the years.
Oh boy, yeah, he sure has.
Yeah. Well, as much as we'd like to go on and on and on, we've only got so much bandwidth. So just to call it out.
Give Paul and I a mic, and we can go on for a while.
Go. But Paul, no, seriously, thank you so much for coming and sharing.
Well, thanks, guys.
Sharing your story and having fun.
Thank you for what you've said to me too.
You're welcome. Being part of our little get together here we do every
shindig.
week. So yeah. So again, thanks everybody for dropping stopping by the Vickers Crossing. It's good to have you part of this as well as always. And thank you to A. Miller George Funeral Home, where each life is celebrated, and their sister company, Cremation London and Middlesex, both family owned and operated. It's our great sponsor here on the Vickers Crossing. And so, Paul, until we all get together again next time.
Are you going to thank your producer?
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a
Ian
roundup
Stevenson?
thank. Yeah, do a roundup thank.
Yeah.
So first, thanks to Ian.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Ian.
And thanks to Revy Kevy.
Yay, baby.
And I'll thank myself. Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And again, until we get together, the Vickers Crossing, we'll see you next time around. And remember, Kevin, to always look both ways
Before you cross that street.
Thank you for listening. Our hosts are Kevin George and Rob Henderson. Our producer and composer is myself, Ian, with original artwork done by Catherine Olenek. If you have any questions or want to know where to find us, tweet us at Vickers Crossing or find us on Facebook at The Vickers Crossing. If you have any other questions about anything heard on this podcast, leave us a comment or look in the description to find out more. Thanks!